So in this video I want to show you the process which I go through to create stunning landscape photos. There is different ways of doing this. This is just the way that I learned to do it, and I'm going to just basically show you the whole process from start to finish of exactly what I do, and hopefully you guys can learn something today. So this is a picture I took the other day. It's actually a picture from my balcony. I'm quite lucky that I have this view sort of just on my doorstep, and you know, quite often when you take pictures outside, you either have a really good sky or sort of a really good foreground area. So on the actual day of taking this photo, I did take two versions. So we have this version where you can see all the lovely shapes and colors in the sky, but you can't see the foreground, and then I have this version where you can see the foreground, but you can't see the stuff in the sky. So the first thing I want to do is I want to copy this whole image and paste it to the other image. So I press Ctrl A to select everything, and then I press Ctrl C to copy it. Then I come here and I press Ctrl V. Now, because the crop for me is not quite right, I want to change the crop a little bit. I just feel like there's a bit too much of this stuff over here, and there's also quite a lot of sky, and I'd like to make the picture sort of more focus on the foreground. So first thing I'm going to do is take the background layer, because the background layer is locked, and I drag it all the way down here onto this little new layer symbol, and I duplicate the layer, and then I press Control and I click the layer above. So I now have both of these layers selected, and I press Control again and I press minus on my keyboard, and then I press Control T, which is for transform. The other way to do that is to go to Edit, Free Transform. Now I hold down Shift, and when you hold Shift it keeps the picture scaling in its same sort of ratio. Okay, so I just wanted to bring this up, like I said, a little bit. I feel like there's a bit too much sort of stuff here and here which I don't need. I like this little bit of tree, so I keep that, and then I just press enter. So the process I'm about to show you is often called exposure blending or dynamic range blending. In recent years we see cameras adding HDR technology, which is basically when the camera takes two pictures and it tries to do this process manually for you, sometimes with some quite good success, but other times, you know, not so much success. Okay, so let's start to bring this layer back. So we click the little eye symbol so we can now see the layer. We come down here to the layer property panel, and make sure you've only got one layer selected when you're doing this, and you can click down here and you can click on the little mask symbol. And the little mask symbol basically means that we're going to add a mask to this layer. So I can use black or white on this mask here. I don't want to click here, you can click between the two. Okay, so I want to click on this one, and if I add black to the picture, it's effectively deleting the content that you can see. Okay, so complete black is like a opacity of 0, and complete white is like a opacity of 100%. So if I use a black brush at 100% opacity and I draw lines through this picture, it's completely deleting the layer just in that area, but it's not actually, it's not like using the eraser tool where you actually lose the layer. It's all the layer is there, it's just parts of it are invisible. And if you use like a 50% brush or a 20% brush, you can just draw on it a little bit, and this is adding, you know, a tiny little bit of removing of that layer. Okay, so I sort of know what I want to do already. You know, there's a line here in my picture where there's some fog, and where the sky starts to come in and the sky's overexposed. So I know that I want to sort of work around this area. So the way that I'll do this is I'll come here, I'll click on this layer, this mask layer, and I'll use a black, quite a big brush, and change this to 100% up here. Okay, and I can just delete everything in that layer. Okay, so you can see here, and in this mask I'm adding black, 100% black, to the bottom half of the picture here. Okay, and I'm just going to do that to about there. Okay, now the reason I want to stop there is because I want to zoom in to, say, this area, and I want to do this a little bit more delicately. Okay, so now I come in with an even smaller brush, and I'm just bringing the previous picture back into view, and sort of keeping an idea of this horizon. Okay, so I wanna work with the horizon here. So I'm just bringing it like so, and I don't know right now where the best point to cut this picture off is. There's this tree line here in front. There's also quite a lot of fog in this picture, so that makes it quite difficult to do. But you know, we're gonna do it anyway. So this is now just removing. Okay, now we need to zoom out a little bit. And you right click and you can click zoom out like so. So as we approach this line here, it's becoming sort of increasingly difficult to separate the background from the foreground. Okay, so we're going to zoom in again, and we're going to go with an even smaller brush, and we're just going to color like this. And I'm going to start to use 30% opacity, and I'm just bringing it away like so. I can maybe zoom out a little bit. Now, because it's foggy, it might actually work in a different way to how I originally expected, and the white that I'm bringing back might actually start to look like fog. Often with this stuff I don't really know completely what I'm trying to do. Actually, if I make my brush even bigger and softer, it's actually so now you can see that I'm running into a slight issue where the two layers are not correctly lined up. You can see here these trees. Can you see that there? This is, so I actually need to move one of my layers. So I'll move the sky, and I need to just line it up using the arrow keys like so. And that's actually better. So yeah, there you can see that's now lined up much better. Okay, so we continue just working with that layer mask and just bringing back some of this detail. We've got too much around this area here is too white, so I'm actually going to start to bring it back again from the top side just to see what happens. Like I said, I'm not sure where the cutoff line will be for a lot of this stuff. It seems to be somewhere maybe in the middle. Maybe these buildings. We can leave a little bit of, because it looks like fog a little bit, so it's actually working a little bit like fog. I'm just alternating between black and white and just blending. And the thing is with photos, if you blend things sort of gently enough, it can be very difficult for people when they first look at your pictures to actually see the things that you've done to them. And it's just about blending everything between the two, just getting it just nice, moving the brush size bigger and smaller, and because there's fog in this picture, it's actually quite a difficult thing to do, because on the top layer obviously it's too dark, on the bottom layer it's too light, and we have fog which is, you know, effectively white. And that's starting to look quite good. It's worth just coming away and looking at the picture as a whole. Just clicking single bits here, bringing the contrast tonal areas down a bit, and you can see now it's starting to bring that whole line back there, and then bring this bit forward a bit. So I'm sort of creating layers within the mask. So you can see here, even though this is the full top of the picture, this fog which is here is causing me a little bit of difficulty. But overall, that's now looking quite good. So earlier on when I shifted the background, when we saw those little lines, you can see here I've created this little bit of white gap. So I'm just going to select both layers again by pressing Shift and Command T again, and I'm just going to bring this off the edge of the screen just a little bit, just to get rid of that mistake, or not that mistake, that imperfection that's appeared. So just working with the layer mask again, guys, black, white, just really bringing some separation to the background here, and then bringing bits back again where I've done too much. Okay, so for me that looks quite good. So the next thing I'm going to do is just play around with the contrast a little bit. Contrast colors, again, I don't always know exactly what I want. I know what it looked like at the time when I took the picture. I always have like a memory, and I try to reconstruct what my eyes saw at the time. So we're going to do layer, new adjustment layer, we're going to use the curves, and this needs to be pulled down a little bit, that's better. So when you're using your curves, you can basically, I feel like the picture's a little bit whitewashed, so I can bring this in a little bit and just add a bit more black, not too much. And then in the middle here, I just drag this up and it brings out some of the highlights. And pull that in there a little bit. Just a very slight change. You can see it bringing out some of the shine in the road. You know, you could argue that it's taking away a bit of the detail from the sky. Maybe I'll put the curve layer just underneath the sky layer, because it was taking away a bit too much there. One of the things that I do regularly is I flatten my image when I'm happy. Okay, I have different reasons for doing that. One of them is just sort of a habit, I guess. So to flatten my image, I'm going to go to Image, Duplicate. Okay, now Layer, Flatten Image. Control A, Control C, and I paste the whole thing back on top of this thing here. So now I have like effectively a flat photo once again, and I can start to change colors and just remove some of the imperfections. So the first thing that's annoying me is this lamppost. So we zoom into the lamppost, we use the zoom, we come in here, we zoom in, have a look at it, see what we want to do. 9 times out of 10 I use healing and clone stamp. So the first thing I want to do is create a new layer on top of this one. The reason I create a new layer is it's much easier for me to go back and remove anything that I'm not happy with. I press Alt and it gives me like a picker for my clone stamp, and I click, and then I can start to clone on top of this layer. Now I want to change this to 100% and just get rid of that quite easily like that. Now sometimes this creates problems with your shading, so you can see there I just bring the color back a little bit, and then I actually use the healing brush, and the healing brush kind of blends and merges your work and sort of brings everything back to the same sort of texture, but with the same level of highlights. I take some of the texture and I just keep pressing Alt, selecting over here, bringing back some texture from somewhere else in the picture which looks a little bit nicer. Then we zoom out, and often when you zoom out you can see, oh hang on a minute, I've done that bit like not quite right, you know. So I just use the healing brush at different sizes and just keep clicking and healing and bringing things away and just sort of really smoothing out any imperfections in that area. Like I said, I use a new layer so you can start to see where you've missed very easily. You can start to see if you've made any big mistakes. That looks pretty good. Quite happy with that. And then I'm just going to move along the road, delete some of these. I guess they're just sort of marks in the road, but they draw my attention. I guess I have a keen eye for detail, and I want everything to be perfect. So often a small healing brush works a little bit better on some of this stuff. just working around the picture, just removing anything at all that distracts my attention. These manholes, for instance, I just want to get rid of them. Some people probably would disagree with my approach, but you know, that's everyone to their own. I can only show you guys what I would be doing here, and a lot of the time I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing. I just sort of work my way around the picture, just removing anything like this little white dot, this little black dot here. I'm actually quite picky, and I remove, I think I remove more stuff than a lot of people, but I feel that one of the things that gives my photos that really polished look is just the amount of time that I spend removing anything that distracts my attention. So a few little lumps in the grass, you know. I mean, sometimes I'll spend hours just removing stuff, and it's stuff that people don't even notice. But when you see the picture at the end, like this big shiny square here is kind of a little bit annoying for me. So again, I can just take a little bit of this hedge and just run over it, and you can see I kind of screw that up. But then I know that I can just come back in here and just keep working. I pressed Ctrl Z there because I wasn't happy with the way the healing brush worked. And just a case of just sort of keep working over the same area, and it eventually just sort of tidies itself up. I mean, it doesn't tidy itself up, I tidy it up, but you know, you could argue that this is a waste of time, but for me, it just makes that bit of the picture a little bit cleaner. And fair enough, it's not perfect, but when you sort of come back to this view, it's quite difficult for your eye to see something which was removed. When you click between the two things, obviously you can see it, but when someone just looks at your picture, the chances that they even look in this exact area is very, very small. So this, for instance, this little this light here, just going to get rid of that. This little white dot, just a few of these sort of things that just distract from the sort of the picture itself, I think. I mean, they're not major. You could leave them, but I like to get rid of them. I mean, not all of them. This one in the tree kind of annoys me a little bit, and maybe this one here is also. And you know, again, it's kind of rough, but people that see your picture, they're not going to see some of this stuff that you removed. It just sort of blends in. And same again in this tree here. Just some of these lights are just, they just look like they're just shining through the light, and they just sort of appear like a dot. This little white bit here. I mean, you'll think it's crazy the amount of effort that I go into doing this, but in my opinion, it makes for a much better photo in the end. So you can see there, just by turning that on and off, we're just removing some of the distraction in some of the detail. Like this, for instance, this light over here is just sort of a light on its own. This light in the tree is just a light on its own. These ones here, they're sort of part, in my opinion, they're sort of part of the picture. But a couple of the other ones, I just want to get rid of them. So I will. Is there anything else right now that's distracting my attention? I don't think there is. I'm pretty happy. The next thing with this picture, this area here for me seems quite bright. It's kind of boring. I would like the attention to be more on this sort of road and these two houses. So I'm just going to come in here, and I'm just going to draw with the polygon tool. Just going to draw around this area here a little bit like so, and I use a little tool, a little trick where I go to select, modifier, and then I feather this area. And a feather is basically like adding an area to the edge of your selection, well from the middle actually, so it's 50 pixels, which basically means at one end you have 100% and at the other end you have 0. So if I do like a feather radius of, let me show you actually. So if I was to do a new layer now and paint it blue, you can see it's a very sharp, hard edge. Okay, if I go to select and I go to modify and I go to feather and I add 50 pixels, then when I paint on this area, you can see now there's a little bit of a blur, and actually that blur is not big enough for me, so I want to do feather of maybe 150. And if I paint on here now, you can see much softer line separating the two things. Obviously I don't want that blue, so I'm going to delete the I'm going to go back into the history to where I made my feather, and here I just want to do new layer adjustment. I want to do curves. I click OK, and here I just bring the curve in a bit, and I'm just removing some of the brightness from that area, just very gently, because I feel that it's less distracting now. A lot of what I do is just about removing some of the distraction to create a stronger image. Now again, I'm going to do something where I go to image and I'm going to go to duplicate, and then I'm going to flatten the image, and then I'm just going to go to image adjustments, auto levels, just to see what Photoshop thinks of the picture. How does Photoshop think that the picture should look? So I click auto, and it's made it a little bit brighter. Okay, so I'll take that picture and paste it back over my original picture, but I'm going to trust Photoshop and just use 50% of it. So I'm taking a bit of it away again and just seeing how it looks. For me, it's a lot about adding a bit, taking a bit away, adding a bit, taking a bit away. The idea is to try and create something which doesn't look like you've edited it. Often when you're editing, you can do too much. So if you constantly take a bit away again, then you sort of decrease your chance of that happening. And I find the colors a little bit cold and a little bit blue. You've got some nice yellows and oranges in the sky. So we can try maybe a photo filter. And it's actually done an orange filter, and I kind of like how that's changed my image. You see it's hidden some of the blue. Yeah, I like that. It feels more natural to me. The whites look less blue. Everything just has a bit less of a blue feel. And I think we're nearly done. The final thing that we can do is consider sharpening the image. So again, I'll do image, duplicate, layer, flatten image. Okay. Control A, Control C, paste it back to the original project. The reason I paste it back to the original project is just so I can keep a history of sort of where I came from, you know. So, and then I can sort of re-examine it and think, you know, does that work? Is there something missing? Is there something more or less that needs to be added? I'm pretty happy. Duplicate the layer again by dragging the layer onto the new layer icon, and we'll go to actual pixels, and we can go to filter, sharpen, unsharp mask, and this has some previous settings in it from before. So 100% threshold of 0, and it's just adding, I don't know if you guys will be able to see it on YouTube, it's just adding a tiny little bit more sharpness to the picture so that when I print it, it's going to look even better. Okay guys, so I think that's the finished image. I'm pretty happy with it. If you have any comments at all, if you have any feedback, I mean perhaps you know an even better way of doing some of these techniques that I've done today. The idea really is for me to just show you how I would do this and get some feedback, get some questions, and I'm going to be doing a lot more of these style of videos when I'm retouching stuff. Just record myself retouching, talk through the process, talk through the thinking. I know it's not complete full details, but hopefully you've managed to pick up some things that you didn't already know. And if you like this kind of tutorial, please hit the subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and leave me a comment. Much appreciated. Thanks for watching.